Hey everyone, and welcome to your in a nutshell review of Thor Ragnarok.
Prevent Ragnarok, the end of everything. So I'm putting together a team. Like the old days.
Thor Ragnarok is the newest outing from Marvel Studios and Disney. It continues the story of Thor, the Norse god of thunder. And this movie, in a nutshell, pretty fantastic. So let's get straight into it. Starting with the good, there's a lot of good to be had here. The movie's funny, it's a lot of fun, it's an action-adventure movie. Some people will try to tell you it's a comedy. I'll tell you why in a minute, why I disagree with that. But it is a very fun movie. From start to finish, it's a roller coaster of fun and excitement, and I really enjoyed this movie. The performances are all great. Hela, played by Cate Blanchett, is really good. Chris Hemsworth as Thor, as always, is really good. And he's able to even bring some more to this story than I feel like he was able to in the previous films. All in all of the performances are great. Tessa Thompson is a standout as Valkyrie. She is going to become a lot of people's new favorite, as well as Korg, who is played by the director, Taika Waititi. He adds a lot of the humor of the movie, and people are going to love him coming out of this movie. The writing is real snappy, real good. The humor fits in really good ways. I think even better so than Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and I was a fan of the humor in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. So I feel like people that may have had an issue with that movie being too funny will find this movie much better at timing the jokes. I think some more of the good. The directing by Taika Waititi is really well done. The movie doesn't have any real fluff to it. It's one of the shorter Marvel movies at 2 hours and 10 minutes. And in that time frame, he's able to flesh out an entire story from start to finish with no fluff. It just feels like a straight ride through this story, and there's no unnecessary things. I think everything that could have been added was added, and everything that could have been taken away was taken away. Just the pacing of the movie is very well done. The character development in this movie is a lot better than the previous two Thor movies, where I felt like it was kind of lacking. Thor gets a great arc. You understand him a little bit better, and I think the best character development is actually for Mark Ruffalo's Hulk character. We get to learn a lot about him, and we get to see him interact with Thor again, which is really fun, and he was a great addition to this storyline. Tom Hiddleston's back as Loki, and he does a great job as always, playing the god of mischief. And just like his namesake, he causes a lot of mischief in this movie, but he's also got a few moments to shine. One of the great things about this movie is that while it does have humorous moments, it's also got a lot of heart and a lot of very meaningful scenes that are going to set up stuff in the future, that help tie up loose ends in the previous films. Really helps it all come together as one cohesive story, and it's not just a bunch of jokes after jokes after jokes. So if that's what you're afraid of, don't worry about that. Taika Waititi does a great job of making sure that the movie has meaning behind it while also being a fun ride. So now moving on to the bad. There is hardly any, if at all any. I think really the only things that I could say are just nitpicky things. I think the beginning of the movie is a little too rapid fire. You kind of just take off and you don't stop. And I guess there could have been a little more moments for breaks in the action and what's going on for me to kind of collect my thoughts and realize what's going on. I feel like I almost have to watch the movie a second time to catch on to some of the things in the beginning of the movie. And then once again, some people may have a little bit of a problem with the fact that Hela is not in the movie as much as you think. She is the villain, and her presence is always known, but she does kind of disappear a little bit at times, and there's not a lot of character development for her. More so than most Marvel movies, but still not enough to really be what some people are wanting out of the Marvel movie villains. But I understand the movie's called Thor. The movie should be about Thor, and so if anybody has to get the short end of the stick, it might be the villain. So now moving on to the best performance, and that can be anything. That can be the directing, the acting, the writing, whatever it may be. This is where I give my own personal award to somebody that I think excelled in this movie. And I really think Taika Waititi, the director, deserves this honor. He took this movie, a franchise that was kind of the lackluster side of Marvel, still great movies, but a little bit on the lackluster side, and he was able to kind of reinvent it and make it a much more enjoyable franchise and a much more enjoyable character. And I think he was also able to just, the pacing of this movie is fantastic. Minus the little bit at the beginning that I talked about, which is really just nitpicking. It's really not that big of an issue. He's able to make the pacing of this movie, you feel like nothing was left out and nothing could have been added to make it any better. Now, the obvious question, do I recommend this movie? Yes, of course I do. Go see this movie. If you enjoy the Marvel movies and you enjoy action, adventure, and comedy and those kind of things, go and see this movie. You don't really have to know a whole lot about the character, so if you haven't seen the other two Thor movies, not a huge deal. It might help a little bit to understand kind of some of the things that are going on, especially earlier in the movie, but you really don't have to. This is a standalone story. You don't need to kind of any outside knowledge, so go see it if you like those kind of movies. If you don't like the Marvel movies, if you don't like superhero movies or anything like that, you could still give it a shot, but it may not be right for you. So if that's the case, then I'd say it's still worth a shot if you're just looking to have some fun at the theater on the weekend. But if you really just hate these movies, then don't waste your time. So now for the big finish. What is my final score of Thor Ragnarok? I give Thor Ragnarok a 9 out of 10. It's not a perfect masterpiece or anything like that, and I don't think it's going to, years from now, people are going to look back at it and go, oh, that's one of the greatest movies of all time. I don't think that's the case. I think it's a fun action adventure, and it adds to the overall story of the Marvel Cinematic Universe in a great way. And it's definitely one of the better Marvel movies. A lot of people are going to probably put this in their top 5, maybe even top 3 Marvel movies, depending on how they respond to it. But for me, it's a 9 out of 10. I think ultimately what the filmmakers set out to do, what their vision for the movie was, is what we got on the screen. And so I think just for that alone, it's definitely deserving of a high score. And I think just because of how much fun I had with it, I'd give it a 9 out of 10.